I'll translate this entire story from Russian to English for you. This is a powerful narrative about a man named Daniel discovering his marriage was built on deception. The backup plan. My name is Daniel. I'm 34 years old. For 8 years, I was married to a woman who wrote on a piece of paper that I was a backup plan. She pinned that note inside a closet where I never looked, and it lay there for years while I built a life on sand and called it love. I found it on the evening when I already knew everything, when nothing could be saved, when the only choice was to leave or stay and watch the play to the end. I stayed, not because I loved her, because I wanted to understand how far a person can go if they stop being good. That note was the final blow, but not the first. The first was a message on the phone that I saw by accident, because I came home from work earlier than usual and didn't warn my wife. An ordinary evening, ordinary gray Portland rain. An ordinary vanilla candle on the kitchen counter that Iris lit every evening, like a ritual, like an attempt to maintain the illusion of coziness. I walked past her phone, and the screen lit up at the exact moment I was nearby. The name at the top, Luca. The message, "Can't wait to see you again. Last night was..." I didn't read further. I didn't pick up the phone, didn't scroll through the conversation, didn't look for evidence. Sometimes one phrase is enough for everything inside to form a picture that you felt but refused to acknowledge. I put the phone back, exactly as it lay, turned to the window, watched the rain turn the street into a blurred watercolor, and felt something inside me switch off. Not pain, not rage, cold, complete, vacuum cold, where emotions arrive with a delay, and you just stand there, observing your own life from the outside, not understanding why you're so calm. Iris came out of the bathroom. Wet hair, the smell of lavender shampoo that I bought her every year for our anniversary. She walked past, picked up the phone, glanced at the screen, put it in her pocket. No pause, no trembling hands. "You're early today," she said. "The meeting was canceled," I replied. My voice sounded normal. How is that possible? How can you stand 3 feet from a person who is destroying your life and talk about meetings and rain? We had dinner. She talked about her day. I nodded in the right places. Everything as always. 8 years, and I didn't see the difference between reality and theater. Or I saw it, but called it normal. I lay in bed next to her, heard her breathing, even and calm, while I stared at the ceiling and realized I didn't want to save the marriage. Didn't want a conversation. Didn't want explanations. I wanted to know how far this madness could go. I wanted to test who I would become if I stopped being good. That thought came not as a flash, but as a slow, almost imperceptible realization that took root with every minute. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to respond in kind. At exactly 3:47 a.m., while Iris slept, I wrote to Zadra Crawford, a woman I'd known for 3 years, who worked in the same building, who always looked at me differently, and I instinctively kept my distance because I sensed where the boundary lay. But that night, boundaries ceased to matter. "You're not asleep?" she asked. "No," I answered. "I need to see you. Somewhere no one knows us." She didn't ask why, didn't ask about my wife, just sent the address of a bar on the east side of town. "Tomorrow, at 8, take off your wedding ring." I looked at my hand. 8 years. A gold ring, worn to a shine in the places where I spun it when I was nervous. I didn't reply, but I went. And that decision became the point from which there was no way back. The bar was called the Velvet Room, and it was exactly what a bar for people who hide should be. Dim light, jazz that prevents you from hearing other people's conversations, bartenders who don't make eye contact. Zadra sat in a corner booth in a black dress I'd never seen, with her hair down so that she seemed like a different person, not the marketer from the elevator I'd known for 3 years. She wasn't surprised to see me, didn't ask what happened, just looked at me the way people look when they already know the answer, and handed me a glass of whiskey. I drank and talked. She listened. Didn't interrupt, didn't comfort, didn't say everything would be okay. This was new. After 8 years with Iris, who always knew what to say, how to react, how to support, Zadra was silent. And in that silence was something that allowed me to be real, to talk about suspicions that had accumulated for months, about late evenings at the office that didn't add up, about the perfume that appeared in our bathroom, though I never bought it, about how Iris stopped asking about my day, and I didn't notice when it happened. Zadra listened, and when I finished, she said, "You're not here because she's cheating on you. You're here because you want permission to be worse than her." I wanted to object, but the whiskey burned my throat, and I stayed silent. Because she was right. I didn't want justice. I wanted revenge disguised as self-discovery. Wanted to prove I could be just as bad, and that would somehow make us equal. We met again, and again. Coffee that stretched into hours. Conversations that crossed boundaries. Touches that could be called accidental, if not for how they felt. I began to lie. Not with words came easily, but with habits. Sudden gyms that didn't exist. Work meetings that weren't on the calendar. Weekend hikes after which I smelled not of pine but of her perfume. I became a method actor in my own life, playing the role of Daniel the husband with such precision that Iris didn't notice the difference. Or noticed, but didn't show it. Or showed it, but I was too caught up in my game to see. Zadra didn't judge me. She fed my darkness, let it grow. When I told her about my first date with Iris, she said, "She was already planning how to leave you. They always plan when they settle for less." When I remembered our wedding, she smiled. Stage fright before going on stage, she wondered if she'd made a mistake. She rewrote my memories one by one, until 8 years began to look like a scam in which I was too stupid to notice the divorce. And I thanked her for it. Because it's easier to believe you were deceived than to admit you participated in the deception. Easier to be the victim than the accomplice. Easier to hate her than to hate yourself for staying. We were at her place. She was cooking dinner, stepped into another room to take a call, and I was left alone. On the shelf stood a cardboard box without a label, dust on the lid that looked like it hadn't been opened in a long time. I wasn't looking for it. But sometimes curiosity isn't a decision but an impulse you don't have time to stop. I opened the box. Photographs. Dozens. Scattered, as if someone had recently rummaged through and hadn't put them away. I took one. 2 young women on a beach. One, red-haired, laughing with her whole body. The other, dark hair, dark eyes, a smile that didn't reach her gaze. Zadra. Younger but recognizable. And next to her, Iris. My Iris. 22, maybe. The same crooked smile, the same tilt of the head, the same freckles on the nose that I'd kissed thousands of times. I took another photograph. A dorm room. Textbooks. String lights. Zadra showing off the world. Iris sticking out her tongue. A third. Graduation gowns, arms around each other's shoulders. A fourth. A bar, half darkness, Iris leaning against Zadra. They hold glasses, look at each other with that intimacy that only exists between those who've been through everything together. I stopped breathing. They knew each other. For years. Before me. If they were so close in college, why had Iris never mentioned her? Why, when I talked about the woman from marketing who asked about my secrets, did she show no recognition? Why let me walk into this blind? I was still processing this, trying to calculate the math of time and connections, when I saw him. The third photograph from the bottom. A man, arm around Iris, smiling at the camera as if he owned the moment. Owned her. I knew that face. Luca. That same Luca, the just a colleague from Iris's work. The one whose name started appearing in her stories 6 months ago. The one who wrote that he couldn't wait to see her. They all knew each other. All 3. Connected long before I appeared. I wasn't a husband. I was an element of a construction I couldn't see. The box slipped from my hands. Photographs scattered across the floor like evidence at a crime scene I'd just discovered. The bathroom door opened. Zadra froze. Looked at the mess, at my face, and in her expression there was no surprise. There was something like relief. "You weren't supposed to find this so soon," she said. "So soon," she said. "So soon." I should have left, driven away, taken the photographs and driven until I hit the ocean. But I stayed, asked how long they'd known each other. She answered, since freshman year, roommates, friends, more than friends, for a while, lost touch after graduation, different cities, different lives. Iris got married, Zadra moved on. But a year ago, Iris found her, said she needed to talk to someone who knew her before the marriage, before all this. "Before what?" I asked. "Before she realized she'd made a mistake," Zadra answered. "That good doesn't mean right. That convenient doesn't mean happy." Iris was planning to leave, planning to figure out how to leave. And then I wrote to Zadra, and everything got complicated. "You knew," I said, my voice breaking. "When I wrote to you that night, you knew who I was, whose husband, what you were doing." She didn't look away. "I knew. And you didn't stop." "No." "Why?" She turned and her face changed, became harder, colder, more honest. "Because Iris told me about you. Reliable, predictable, the type who never steps sideways. And I thought, let's test it. Let's see how deep the cracks go. What happens if you press?" It was an experiment. Everything is an experiment. She came closer. "But I didn't expect to actually like you. The real you. The one burning under the ice. Don't pretend it was real." "Who's pretending?" She touched my face. I flinched but didn't pull away. "The game became real, Daniel. That's the danger of games. Sometimes you forget you're playing." I left at 2 a.m. The steering wheel trembled in my hands. Not from anger, from the realization that I wasn't the main character of this story. Not even the villain. I was a function. A variable in an equation I didn't know I was solving. A lab rat who thought it was running the maze itself. The following weeks I was a ghost in my own house. Watched Iris like a specimen under glass. Every gesture, every pause, every glance at her phone. And, strangely, she watched me too. Not with guilt, with assessment, with checking, as if waiting for something. Measuring. We dined at the oak table we'd bought when we moved, and I caught her gaze, comparing, noting differences. "You've been quiet lately," she said once. We were eating pasta. The same dish Zadra cooked, and this coincidence turned my stomach inside out. "Work stress," I answered. The lie came easily. Too easily. "Luca says hello," she said. The fork froze halfway to my mouth. "From work. He talked about you. Wanted to meet the mysterious husband." Mysterious? His word. The symmetry was maddening. I was meeting her friend, thinking I was hiding, and she… What? Knew? Always knew? Playing her own game with Luca? Paranoia became the third presence in the marriage. Sat at the table, slept between us. I kept a journal. Time. Places, conversations. Built a case against a crime I couldn't name. Monday, Iris home at 6:30. Said, gym. No gym bag. Smells of coffee, not sweat. Wednesday, message from Luca during dinner. She smiled at the screen. Didn't explain. Friday, asked about weekend plans. Too casually. Testing. And then the photographs appeared. Not the ones from Zadra's box. New ones. Printed. Scattered on the kitchen table like cards laid out by an invisible hand. I came home early, already a habit, and they were there. Me and Zadra. The coffee shop, the bar, her entrance, the park where we walked that Sunday when she told me about her father's death, and I held her hand too long. Recent dates. Someone had been watching for weeks. And in the center, another photograph. Iris and Luca. At a restaurant I didn't know. his hand on hers, head thrown back in laughter. She'd left this for me, wanted me to know that she knew. Iris sat in the living room, calm, too calm. Hands folded like someone waiting for a bus. "You've started," she said. Not a question. I looked at the photographs, at her, back at the photographs. "How long?" I asked, my voice empty, as if from the bottom of a well. "How long? What?" "How long have you known?" She tilted her head, the same gesture as in the photographs with Zadra. 22-year-old Iris and 34-year-old, perfectly matching. "About you and Zadra," she thought, "from the very beginning." The room tilted. The floor became the wall. The wall, the floor. "That's impossible." "Daniel, you wrote to her at 3:47 a.m. You think I don't check your phone? Don't know your habits? You broadcasted for months. But you didn't stop." "No." She smiled, and it was the saddest thing I'd seen. "Didn't stop." The same words as Zadra, the same intonation, the same horrible weight. "Why?" I asked. "Why watch?" "Because I needed to know," she said, "to know if you were capable of it. If you were really that good, or if it was circumstances, absence of opportunity, the right temptation. It was a test. Everything is a test, Daniel. Marriage is one long test, checking if you chose the right person. And I failed." She stood, came to the table, touched the photographs. "We both did." I should have asked more, demanded the whole story, the timeline, the truth about her and Luca, her and Zadra, the connection that bound all three in ways I was only beginning to understand. But I was so tired of the game, of suspicions, of being 3 moves behind in a game I hadn't agreed to play. I went to sleep without words. Iris didn't follow. And at 4 a.m, I found the letter. Not an email, not a message. A physical envelope slipped under the door, no stamp, no return address. As if someone had walked up the porch and delivered it personally in the dark. Inside, printouts, screenshots, a conversation between Iris and Zadra. Dated a year before I noticed any problems in the marriage. I read slowly because my brain refused to accept the meaning. They were discussing me, my habits, reactions, processing patterns, my probable responses to different scenarios, marked with psychological precision that made me feel like a rat in a maze designed by people who'd studied me my whole life. "He's the type who needs to feel like he's choosing," Zadra wrote, "even when he's being led." "Give him the illusion of control," Iris replied. "He'll run with it. And if he doesn't bite, he'll bite. They always bite. It's about the right bait." And Luca. Luca was there too. Not as a lover, as a variable, a stress test. Someone whose presence would accelerate the timeline. "Luca is interested," Iris wrote. "Worth it?" "Yes," Zadra answered, "but easy. Don't actually fall in love. This is about Daniel." It was always about Daniel. I wasn't a husband. I was a project, a long-term study of human behavior, an experiment reaching its final stage. I wasn't a subject. I was an object. And in that wasn't so much offense as horrible, cold relief. Because finally, everything made sense. 8 years, not a marriage, a laboratory, and I, a mouse who thought it was running of its own free will. I sat with the letter until dawn. Didn't move, didn't drink, didn't think, just looked at the paper until the words stopped being words and became shapes, sounds, abstract vibrations without meaning, because the meaning was too big to contain all at once. I wasn't a husband. I was a case study, a data set, a variable that was controlled, observed, recorded, analyzed. And when I finally stood, when my body began moving on its own, gathering things, I realized I didn't feel anger, didn't feel pain, felt only sharp, cold clarity. I packed a suitcase. Not much. Clothes, laptop, Photographs from the table. Printouts from the letter. Evidence for a trial I'd lost without knowing I was being judged. Iris stood in the bedroom doorway, watched me mechanically folding shirts, without thought, without choice. Just movements the body remembers when the mind is switched off. "You're leaving," she said. Not a question. "What choice do I have?" I answered. "You always have a choice, Daniel. That's what makes you so predictable." I stopped, looked at her, really looked, trying to find the woman I loved in this stranger who'd planned my destruction. "Was anything real?" I asked. 8 years, us, was anything real? She didn't answer immediately. That was worse than no. "The feelings were real," she finally said. "Just not the context." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have." I took the suitcase, walked to the door, hand on the handle, and stopped. On the inside of the closet in the hallway, a flash of white. I'd never looked there. A pin, greened with time. A note. Her handwriting. Faded edges. Months? Years? I unpinned it. Unfolded. 3 sentences. No date. No signature. But I knew before reading what would be there, because part of me always knew, felt it in the pauses between words, in the moments when she looked at me like a temporary measure. The main thing. Don't tell him he was always a backup plan. I left, without goodbye, without a scene, without the satisfying conflict where truth finally comes out, and everyone cries, and maybe, there's forgiveness at the end. Only the sound of a closing door, soft as a sigh, and Portland rain, and the understanding that I'd built 8 years on sand. The first week I was in a motel by the highway. Rest, stop. The irony, obviously, unintended. An orange bedspread hiding stains. A landscape on the wall. Mountains, trees. A lake that doesn't exist in reality. I stared at it for 6 hours the first night. Didn't think. Didn't feel. Existed. Breathed. Waited for something to happen. Nothing happened. The second night I cried. Not movie crying with sobbing and shaking. Quietly. Tears just fell. Like a dripping faucet. I didn't know I was crying until I tasted salt. Cried for the marriage. For the years. For the person I thought I was. And the person I turned out to be. Most of all, I cried because I didn't know what came next. 8 years building a life with someone, and now that life was gone, and I had no template for what came after. The third night, I was angry. Hit the wall, hurt my hand. The wall didn't even dent. Then I understood how thin the walls were, how cheap the construction, how close the other guests, how close the world. I was angry at Iris, at Zadra, at Luca, at myself most of all, because I made the choice that brought me here. I chose curiosity over loyalty, darkness over light, their game over my own truth. The fourth night I started writing. Not letters, I'm smarter than that. Not a journal, too dangerous, too permanent. Just notes, on motel notepads with motel pens. Fragments of thoughts, questions without answers. Why did I stay when I saw the message? What if I'd spoken up immediately? Was anything real? Am I capable of being good? I filled 3 notepads, then threw them away, because the answers weren't in words. They were in the gaps, in silence, in not knowing. The 5th night I called my sister. Hadn't told anyone. Not parents, not friends, not colleagues. Just disappeared. Email, personal time. Let them think what they want. "Daniel," my sister's voice was worried. "Where are you? Iris called looking for you." "I left," I said. "Left? Like, left? "Yes." "What happened?" "Everything. Nothing. I don't know how to explain." Pause. My sister is older. 15 years of marriage. Kids. She knows things I don't know. "Are you safe?" she asked. "Yes." "Will you come back?" "I don't know." Do you need me to come? No. I don't know what I need. Time, she said. You need time. Don't make decisions until you can breathe again. I hung up and cried again, because she was kind, and I didn't deserve kindness. I deserved exactly what I got, a cheap motel room and a future I couldn't see. But the questions didn't go away. Who sent the letter? If Iris and Zadra were working together, why expose themselves? What was the end goal? What did they want from me that they hadn't already taken? And Luca, the variable, the stress test. What was his role? Did he know he was being used? Did he care? I did something stupid. I found him. It was easier than it should be. Social media, mutual connections, a coffee shop where he went every Tuesday at 3 like clockwork. He had a routine, patterns, like me. He looked normal, boring even. A guy in a plaid shirt, sipping an oat latte, scrolling through his phone with that relaxed absorption of people whose lives haven't collapsed. I sat across from him without asking. He looked up, wasn't surprised, just recognized. Daniel, not a question. I've been waiting for you to show up. You know who I am. I know who you think you are. He put away his phone. There's a difference. I wanted to hit him, flip the table, scream, make him admit he stole my life, participated in my destruction, laughed at me with them. Instead, I asked, why me? He blinked, genuinely confused. Why you what? Why the target? What did I do? What did you all want? Luca looked at me for a long time, then laughed. Not maliciously, just genuinely surprised as if I'd told a joke he didn't expect. Dude, you really don't get it, do you? Get what? He took out his phone, scrolled, turned the screen to me. Different messages. Between him and Iris. Not the ones I'd seen. I'm scared, she wrote, 3 months ago. I don't know if I love him. I don't know if I love anyone. I just know I can't keep pretending. Then don't pretend, Luca replied. But don't destroy him. He's a good guy. Good guys deserve better than me. Everyone deserves better than someone who pretends to be love. I scrolled. Pages. Iris. Confused. Lost. Suffering. Turning to an old friend because she didn't know how to talk to her husband. Didn't know the words that would end everything. Not a scheme. Not a plan. Just a woman falling out of love and not knowing how to say it. The photographs, I said. You, her, Zadra, from college. College, Luca said. We all studied together. Lost touch. Reunited when she reached out. Well, you know, about the marriage. And Zadra. He shrugged. Zadra is Zadra. Always been intense. Loves games. Loves puzzles. When Iris told her about problems in your marriage, she saw a project, not a person. She used me. You used each other. Luca's voice was soft. Too soft. You think you were innocent? You cheated first, Daniel. You made that choice. Everything after. Just consequences. I wanted to object. Explain about the phone, the message, the cold decision to stay and watch. How Zadra made me feel seen in ways Iris hadn't for years. But he was right. I was so focused on being the victim, the experiment, the backup plan, that I missed the obvious truth. I voluntarily entered into all of this. Every step. The message at 3 a.m., the meeting at the bar, the choice to return again and again, to lie, to dive deeper into darkness because it felt like truth. What about the note? I asked. In the closet, about the backup plan. Luca's expression changed, became something like pity. I don't know about any note, but Daniel, if she wrote it, if she really thought that, why stay 8 years? Why try so hard? To prove something? Or because she loved you, even when she didn't know how? I returned to the house a week later, not to reconcile, not to talk, just to see. to make sure it was real, that it happened, that I wasn't still in a nightmare where everything I believed was true. The house was empty. Not just empty, erased. Iris took almost everything. Furniture, photographs, vanilla candles that burned every evening for 8 years. The closet where I found the note was bare, the pin still sticking out of the wall like a question mark. But she left one thing. On the kitchen table, an envelope. My name. Her handwriting. Inside, a letter. Longer. Real. Daniel. When you read this, I'll already be gone. Not hiding. Just gone. I don't expect you to understand, and I don't deserve forgiveness. But I need you to know something. There was no plan. No experiment. No conspiracy. There was just me. Failing at love. Failing at honesty. Failing to be the person you thought I was. Zadra saw opportunity in my weakness. She's always like that. She pushed me to test you, to see how you'd react. I don't know. To prove something. About men. About marriage. About control. I let her. That was my crime. I let her turn my confusion into a game. And I watched you play because part of me was too cowardly to just say, I don't love you anymore. But here's what you must understand. The note in the closet wasn't about you as a backup plan. It was about me. A reminder to myself not to tell you that you were my second choice, because you weren't. You were my first real attempt at love, my only one. And I failed you. The backup plan. That was me. I was planning to leave, run back to the old life, to college friends, to the person I was before you. Because that person didn't have to face the hard truth that love isn't enough, that compatibility isn't destiny, that sometimes two good people make a bad couple. I'm sorry, it doesn't help, I know, but it's the truth. Iris. I sat on the floor of that empty house for 3 hours. Read until the words stopped making sense, until sorry became just a shape, a sound, a vibration without meaning. Because truth, it's not one story, it's layers, competing narratives. Iris's version, Zadra's version, my version. In her version, she was lost, and I was collateral damage. In Zadra's version, I was a puzzle to solve. In my version, I was a tragic hero, betrayed by forces beyond control. But the real truth, the one that sits in the stomach like a stone, we were all architects of this destruction. Iris, choosing silence over honesty. Zadra, turning pain into sport. And me. God, especially me. Seeing the message on her phone and deciding not to leave, not to fight, not to demand answers, but to descend. To answer betrayal with betrayal, to become the villain I imagined her to be. The note in the closet wasn't the cruelest thing in that house. I was. And in that realization, in that cold, clear understanding, I stopped being a victim, because victims don't choose. And I chose. Every step, every lie, every return to Zadra, every justification, every she made me. No, I did this. I built my own prison, brick by brick, choice by choice. And now, sitting on the empty floor, with a letter in my hand, I felt for the first time not fear, not anger, not despair. I felt responsibility. Heavy, cutting, but mine. This was a beginning. Not an end. Not forgiveness. Not understanding. But a beginning of something else. Something that could be mine. 3 months I lived in the motel, then rented an apartment in Seattle. New city. New job. New routes that didn't pass places where vanilla candles burned. I didn't call Iris. Didn't answer Zadra's messages that came once a month, increasingly rare, increasingly short. How are you? She asked. I didn't answer, not because I was angry, because I understood. Okay, that's not something she can give me. That's not something any of them could give or take away. I built my prison myself, and only I could take it apart. But the past wouldn't let go. I woke at 3 a.m. with the question, who sent the letter? If Iris and Zadra were working together, why expose themselves? What was the end goal? I returned to Portland not for her, not for them, for myself, because escape is also a prison, just with different walls. I parked across from the old house. It looked different. The light in the windows was different. New tenants, probably. Or Iris returned and I didn't know. I sat in the car for 3 hours. Rain beat against the glass like then, that evening when everything began. And I realized I couldn't leave again. Couldn't leave this unfinished. Not for revenge, for understanding, to look in the eyes of who I'd become. Because you're not finished, she answered. And you, are you finished? She looked at me. For the first time without a mask, without a game, without the predatory smile that saw through me. Just exhaustion, and something like regret. I finished when you left, she said. Didn't expect it to be so empty. Didn't expect that this. She didn't finish. Didn't need to. I understood. For her, it had been real, too. Not just a project, not just a puzzle. She'd also gone too far. And lost. We sat in silence. Two people who used each other to escape their own darkness. Who found in each other something missing in themselves, and destroyed everything around trying to fill the void. The letter, I said. Did you send it? She shook her head. Not me. Who? Iris. I froze. She wanted you to know. Couldn't say it herself. Couldn't continue the game, but couldn't just stop. So she sent it. So you'd leave. So it would end. Was that mercy? That was liberation. For both of you. I stood, walked to the door, stopped. I don't forgive you, I said. I don't ask, she answered. But I understand now. We were the same. Both cowards. Both users. Both lonely. She didn't answer. I left. For the first time in 8 months, I felt something like peace. Not happiness, not forgiveness, but an end. A real end. I drove to the house where I'd once lived with Iris, stood across from it, looked at the windows where someone else's light burned, and understood I didn't need to knock, didn't need to ask, didn't need goodbye. Because goodbye, it's not a place, it's not a person, it's a decision inside. I left Portland at dawn, not running, not chasing, just left, with a suitcase that was lighter than when I arrived. Because I left there a burden I'd carried for years. The burden of being good, the burden of being understood, the burden of being loved at any price. I drove down the highway, and the sun rose over the mountains, and for the first time in 8 years, I didn't know who I'd be tomorrow. And that was scary. And that was free. And that was mine. A year has passed. I live in Seattle. Work at a small firm no one knows. Rent an apartment with a view of the water that I can't afford, but pay for because I need to see the horizon. Sometimes I think of them, all three, where they are, if they're still connected, if they think of me. Zadra wrote 3 months ago. Briefly, I'm sorry. I didn't answer, not because I don't forgive, because forgiveness, it's not a reply. It's internal work that I'm still doing. Iris hasn't written. I don't look for her. Not on social media, not through mutual acquaintances, not in memories that come at night and that I release like air from lungs. Luca, the only one I'd want to thank, for the honesty he gave when he didn't have to, for the mirror he held up, even unknowingly. But I don't write. Because gratitude is also a connection, and I need to be free from all connections built on lies. My sister asks if I'm happy. I don't know how to answer. Happiness isn't what I'm looking for. I'm looking for integrity. The ability to be alone and not be afraid. The ability to look at my actions and not justify. I cheated on my wife. That's a fact. Not because she started first. Not because I was used. I made a choice. At 3 a.m, at the bar. In every lie I told. I chose. And that responsibility, heavy, but mine. It makes me a person, not a character in someone else's story. Sometimes I wake with the question, what if I'd left that first evening? What if I'd spoken up when I saw the message? What if I hadn't written to Zadra? I don't know the answer. Never will. This is the moral dilemma I live with. Not to suffer, to remember that every choice has a price, that darkness in us is real, and it demands only one thing, permission to enter. That being good isn't nature, it's practice. Daily. Every minute. I don't know if I'll love again. Don't know if I'll want marriage. Don't know if I can trust. But I know that now I'll be honest. First with myself. That's all I have. That's all I need. The story doesn't end happily, it ends real. With me being here. That I breathe. That I chose to live with the truth, even if it's ugly. That I'm no longer a backup plan. Not in someone else's life. Not in my own. I'm the main character. Not because I'm special. Because this is my story. And I'm finally writing it.